Right now at 6, a Northeast Portland neighborhood rattled by a gun battle.
It's very rare, and it's really scary to hear that there was someone with a rifle just shooting.
Plus, a guilty verdict in a violent street racing crash. How fast investigators say the man was driving moments before the collision. Then, pressure builds on the city of Portland and Multnomah County to do more with less.
We have got to get this under control. We cannot keep going back to the state.
And the local college student reaching for the stars and what he found along the way.
I've been able to identify something, along with my mentor that, hasn't been identified before.
Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko. We begin at 6 with a threat from Multnomah County to close 2 Portland homeless shelters and cancel future planned sites if the county cannot find the money to keep them running. Blair Best joins us now. So Blair, this was a meeting with both city and council leaders. Both have budget gaps. Both are working to find ways to fix them. Might have to make some substantial cuts as well there. What'd you find out today?
So, David, shelter closures are just one of the many potential side effects to the massive budget shortfall both the city of Portland and Multnomah County are facing. And that looming crisis was the backdrop of today's meeting. County leaders presented a quarterly progress report, and city and county commissioners each had 2 minutes to share their thoughts and ask questions. And let me tell you, it was not all pretty. Broadly speaking here, the 27-page report shows the county is still below their goals of getting people off the streets and into permanent housing. And there are issues with how they track that data. For example, the county reports more than 1,200 people left shelter for housing. That number represents only 20% of everyone who left shelter, less than half their goal. And as for the other 80% of people, the county says they don't know where they went. Now that didn't sit right with some commissioners.
I'm concerned about the continued lack of data of inflow and outflow because we actually have no idea whether there's a net reduction in homelessness without that, and we've been promised that for a while.
Normally, I'm a very optimistic person. I give people the benefit of the doubt, but I'm not feeling that way right now.
Yeah, it really sounds like a lot of uncertainty and more questions on both sides there. Let's talk about that budget shortfall and the gaps the city and county. What's happening to try and close those?
So that was also a major focus today as well. We know the county and city are both facing budget shortfalls around $100 million each, and homeless services are among the departments facing cuts. The county has asked the state, metro, and neighboring counties to pitch in and help fill the budget gap. Those requests haven't gone over so well. Today, one councilor had his own idea of how to handle this by eliminating what he called administrative bloat.
So if you just trimmed the administrative bloat from our dollar spending, you would close this gap. Okay, we shouldn't be closing beds. We should be trimming our administrative bloat. We have got to get this under control. We cannot keep going back to the state and other buckets of money or providers for money and hope to kind of continue to pay this cost unless we're willing to ask the hard questions and say, is this the best use of our costs?
Now, after the meeting, I caught up with the new council president, and she told me how she plans to gain the public's trust back amid this difficult climate. I'll have that and much more coming up tonight, right after this at 6:30 on The Story.
Yeah, fair to say trust is so important, especially as this new form of government, because it is brand new, right? Tries to find its way. Thank you, Blair. Looking forward to that. In your headlines, a Multnomah County jury has convicted a St. Helens man of assault and reckless driving stemming from a North Portland street racing crash that seriously injured his brother. A heads up, some of this video is fairly difficult to watch. In May 2023, Ivan Savitsky was speeding down North Marine Drive with his brother Andre in the passenger seat. Investigators say their vehicle was going over 140 miles an hour when another car turned in front of them. Ivan swerved to miss it and crashed into a tree. He broke his leg in the crash, though his brother suffered a severe brain injury that's affected his memory and speech. Today's conviction carries a 70-month mandatory sentence. We'll have much more tonight on KGW News at 11. Lawmakers in Salem will have an additional $350 million to work with as they prepare the new 2-year budget. That's the latest prediction out today from Oregon State economists. And while that's just a fraction of the $38 billion budget, it'll help lawmakers as they make some tough choices this legislative session. The increase, by the way, comes from an estimated jump in tax revenue, the one that's offset by added spending this budget to cover last year's wildfire costs. Remember that? Well, as for the kicker rebate, That's projected to be slightly lower. And some relief for folks in eastern Oregon who'd been threatened by rising floodwaters. Last night, the 1,800 residents of Vail were told to be ready to evacuate. Officials were concerned the levee protecting the town from the rising Malheur River could fail. Well, today an Army Corps of Engineers team inspected that levee and concluded it was safe. The river should begin receding tomorrow. Meanwhile, a 33-mile stretch of Highway 20 that's a major link to Central Oregon remains closed due to high water. Matt?
Well, there's no big rain on the way for eastern Oregon or southern Oregon over the next several days. We'll get some beginning Sunday, but we're okay for a while. The big story today, though, how warm it got. We made it up to 61 in Portland, tying Sunday for the warmest temperatures of the year so far here in the Rose City. But look at the North Coast, nearly 70 there. Roseburg nearly 70, 50s and 60s throughout eastern Oregon. A little bit cooler in Burns, but everybody else in the 50s and 60s and well into the 60s. And that's where we're headed over the next several days. Now, the other thing that's happening this week, the Parade of Planets, which peaks on Friday. This is just after sunset on Friday, which is about 5:57. So just after 6 p.m., look to the west. This is the western sky. You will see Mars very easily. Jupiter really easily. Uranus not so easily. That one and Mercury you need a telescope for, but Venus will be visible. Saturn, you also need a telescope for that. And then down close to the horizon, you will see the waxing very, very thin and subtle crescent moon. We have a new moon tomorrow, so just a little bit of a sliver on Friday as we go into the new moon phase, or into the new moon phase. But anyway, that'll be really fun to track over the next several nights. Again, look to the west just after sunset for that. Tomorrow, we'll have a clear sky after some morning fog, and we get up to 65 degrees. And in fact, the clear days will continue for several days to come. We'll talk about the sunset progression as we come back later. David?
Yeah, things are looking up. Thank you, Matt. Now at 6, some neighbors on a residential street just a few blocks off northeast Alberta are on edge after a gun battle erupted in the middle of the day. John Adams is live at Northeast 12th and going. John, it's been more than 24 hours now. Any update on suspects or arrests there?
Well, David, no updates of any kind from Portland police today, but neighbors I spoke with here told me dozens of shots were fired yesterday between a person standing in the street and multiple individuals in a car. They say it's unsettling that something like this happened in their normally quiet neighborhood. Now, Portland police say the shooting happened just before 1 p.m. Investigators found roughly 30 shell casings near the intersection. Neighbors tell me it appeared the person in the street was firing at a car with a long rifle before both left the scene. A PPB spokesperson says it appears no one was injured in the shooting, which residents believe is extremely lucky because this area typically sees a lot of foot and bike traffic to and from local schools, churches, and shops. Now, I spoke with a man named Jeff Martin who has lived in the neighborhood for nearly 3 decades. Martin told us shootings used to be more common, but have become a rarity over the last few years. But he's going to be paying closer attention to what's going on after this shooting.
I don't know what else, one can do except to keep their eyes open and hope that it's kind of a one-time thing.
Well, Portland police say their enhanced community safety team are going to be following up with investigations, but like we talked about earlier, David, so far no suspects in this case. Back to you.
Now, John Adams in Northeast Portland tonight. Thank you, John. All right, to a sudden about-face by the federal government and a big sigh of relief for a local nonprofit after the Trump administration reinstated funding for legal representatives for minors who are trying to achieve legal status in the U.S. Libby Dowsett's here. Libby, you talked to a young woman who says this decision feels intensely personal.
It does. The young woman I met today is from Guatemala. She crossed the border as a teenager and arrived here in Portland after years in detention camps. She said kids like her are all around us, needing some help to achieve legal status. This senior in college, who asked to have her identity concealed, had a long solo journey from Guatemala to the U.S. at the age of 15, including a perilous trip across the Rio Grande.
It was scary. I mean, I couldn't swim, so I just kind of rely on someone pull me and, floating me over across the river. She
swam away from a violent home only to be stuck in detention camps and group homes for nearly 2 years.
Sometimes you feel like you can go crazy, and if you don't have positive thoughts and a strength, like a strong mind, it kind of like cuts you down into pieces and you lose the purpose of being who you are and continue going forward.
Once she landed in foster care in Portland, it was attorneys at Immigration Counseling Services who helped her achieve her dream of legal status.
It takes a long time to build trust and let them know that, we're there to protect their due process.
Frank Garcia and staff at ICS depend on federal funding to support young people like this from places all around the world. They're helping provide legal aid to more than 160 minors in Oregon and Southwest Washington right now. Friday, without explanation, the Trump administration canceled the order to halt legal services to migrant children.
Sending them all back, wherever that is, and turning our back on them, what harm are you doing to them, and what harm are you doing to yourself and your local community?
As for paying it forward, this student is now working at ICS to help others going through the same struggles.
I just see them as a version of my younger me, being helpless and hopeless. So I just hope to just be a light for them.
A light and a helping hand as they keep working at their American dream. Frank Garcia believes it was a massive letter writing campaign, some 17,000 letters to congressional leaders that convinced the Trump administration to reverse course and reinstate legal aid funding for minors. He said during the 3 days of panic last week, the nonprofits turned to private donations to take care of their most urgent legal cases. David.
Well, good to hear there's some certainty there now. Libby Dowsett reporting. Thank you, Libby.